Hey everyone, welcome to NTX Inno's newest virtual event series, Bytes with the Beat. Thank you guys so much for attending. Before we get started, I just want to let you know that you are all on mute. So if you have any questions that come up during our conversation here, please send them in the chat box and we'll try to get to answer those at the end of the event. Again, this is our first Bytes with the Beat. These are short one-on-one kind of conversations with local founders, investors, stakeholders, and thought leaders. It's modeled after our core newsletter, The Beat, which hopefully you are all readers and subscribers of. But really, these are just kind of fun conversational looks at the people, companies, and ideas that are kind of driving the local ecosystem. Today, we're sitting down with Jay Veal, founder and CEO at Inc Education and Black Tutors of Social Media. He's also the co-founder of Inc Beauty. And I guess you could also add a NTX Inno on Fire honoree on there as well. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the Inc Education's upcoming second headquarters in Atlanta. We're also going to be looking at how they're helping the Black community and Black entrepreneurs, as well as just everyone and kind of involved in entrepreneurism and education. And also kind of looking at how they've been handling the pandemic. Again, awesome. Before we kind of get started and get into the introductions, I just kind of want to introduce what Inno is to anyone who isn't familiar with us. We're part of a growing network of sites. We're currently in 14 markets, NTX being the newest. And we're committed to covering and connecting local technology, startups, growth, and innovation. We've got our weekly email newsletter, The Beat. We have our stories with editorial content. We have monthly events, which obviously are virtual for right now, directories, data, and more. NTX Inno is building a portal to the startups and tech community. So be sure, if you have not already, to check us out at ntxinno.com and kind of see what we're all about. Feel free to click around in there. And also make sure, again, you're signed up for our daily newsletter, The Beat. It's really the best way to stay kind of plugged into everything that's impacting the local innovation economy. In it, we've got all the tech and startup news you need, some analysis that you probably won't find anywhere else, info about upcoming events and cool job openings, and a whole lot more. And like this conversation is going to be, we try to keep it kind of fun and conversational. So here we've got Jay Veal. Jay, I'm going to let you kind of introduce yourself and kind of tell us a little bit about, you know, the companies you're involved with.
Yeah, so hey everybody, like Kevin said, my name is Jay Veal, CEO of It's Not Complicated Education, as well as Inc Beauty and Black Tutors of Social Media. So a little bit of background about the Inc Education organization. Right now, we're the #1 African-American owned private education company in the Southern United States. We service students from first grade all the way up to PhD level in STEM subjects, test preps, English, reading, writing, and foreign languages. We recently actually moved our name from Inc Tutoring to Inc Education because we now have a wider cast or a wider net of portfolio of services, moving to anywhere from your test preps to mentoring to different types of workshops to college readiness, right? To ghostwriting for authors. We also do literature reviews for those that want to be physicians, and also resume review writing and review as well. So do a lot of things there to impact the community and to impact students, whether they're little kids or little students or adult learners at that point as well. In addition to that, on the Inc Beauty side of the house, we're an on-demand beauty service that is geared towards really millennials and I would say the next generation X, right? So generation X and down, providing those type of beauty and cosmetic services to those individuals, and also educating our artists and our clientele about their cosmetics and making them feel confident about themselves when they're done, and providing opportunities for them to become entrepreneurs at the end of the day as well. And then of course with Black Tutors of Social Media, a new organization that's about to spin off here and launch next month. Our website is under development right now, but it is a pathway for multiple people, from educators, parents, and students, to be able to utilize and find Black tutoring companies that are privately owned throughout the globe, so they can provide services to those students who need it right now, especially during the pandemic. In addition to that, on the nonprofit side of the house, it'll be an organization built to provide different types of services and to have different type of programming, right? So anywhere from free tutoring services to entrepreneurship programming, financial literacy, travel, and a couple different other programs. So it's a lot going on between all three organizations, but they're all impactful at the same time between Atlanta, Dallas, and the United States. And quite frankly, with the education company, we now have about 95 tutoring consultants nationwide between Dallas, Fort Worth, Chicago, DC, Austin, and Atlanta.
Yeah, you're definitely going to make this difficult to try to pack all this into a 30-minute conversation here. But I guess I do kind of want to start with kind of like the big news, the second headquarters in Atlanta. I guess kind of how long has that been in the works, and kind of what's the decision behind, why Atlanta, I guess?
Absolutely. So a while back, I'll say about a year ago, we had a conversation within the organization and the executive team stating that we had quite a few people that were coming to us as clients, our clientele that were coming to us for tutoring services. And we were providing, I would say every month, we were getting a couple people trickling in from Atlanta. So we thought, what would it look like for us to expand from Dallas Metroplex area to the Atlanta area and make some things happen for the students of color there? Our population out here in Dallas-Fort Worth is a little smaller when it comes to the minority population and the Black student population, but Atlanta has a wider and a greater percentage of Black students in that particular system between Atlanta Public School System, Fulton County, Gwinnett County, and beyond, right? So we wanted to figure out, would this be a great move for us? And it turns out it just made sense over a course of time. And so people kept on requesting, hey, are you guys in Atlanta? Are you guys in San Francisco? Are you guys in Miami? And we needed to have some physical people on the ground running there. And so we decided to place about 5 to 6 people there right now before I actually officially move to Atlanta next month to expand the organization. And we've had a lot of individuals who just say that the education system right now in Atlanta really needs an organization that can not only solve problems in the tutoring space and work with students and build relationships, but they needed an organization to come in that is of value, that really gets to know their students from a relationship mindset and provides a really great holistic solution and mentoring for these students out there between Atlanta, Dallas, and beyond. So it's a great move.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, like y'all's focus is kind of on, Black students and students of color. And I mean, we've talked about this before, being a former educator myself, like I kind of know the answer, but for people who, aren't in that kind of field, why is it important to kind of focus on, students of color? Like, what is their, talk about, I guess, kind of the achievement gap, so to speak.
Yeah, so if you kind of look at the data, we see that in the classroom right now, we have a lot more students who are minority, and that's from a wider cast net of Black students, Asian students, Indian students, Hispanic students that are actually in the student seats, right? So if the population of students is over 54% that's sitting in the seats, but the teaching staff that is teaching these minority students is over 82% non-minority, we have a gap right there, right? That's of who is actually teaching our students of color who actually understand them, right? So that's one dynamic and thing that we have to deal with, right? On the second part of that, we then see, okay, how can tutoring be brought to the table where we can build the solid relationships with those students of color who can be relatable and who know the content as well, right? So we found a holistic solution in our organization that states, hey, let's build a relationship between the parents and the students. Let's then take that to a holistic circle of influence between different stakeholders in the process to ensure that they have academic success. They mentor the students and provide back and support. And that is what's needed. I talk about this in my TED Talk that I did in New York. I talk about the relationship about how do we, push together that relationship between getting to know that student and understanding how they learn and what they want to really get out of that relationship. You can't really teach them anything unless you really understand them, and that's really important. So for students of color, they need not just the content, but how you can relate that content to them in multiple different ways.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't really have that kind of like connection with like a student or anything, it's kind of hard to just like shovel information at them. It's not going to stick too well.
Exactly.
and kind of looking at it, education as a whole, obviously, with schools talking about reopening and things changing on the daily basis, I guess, like, how do you see like y'all's business and kind of what you do placed for kind of this moment where people are trying to figure out, virtual learning, in-person learning, and I guess like kind of what are some of your thoughts on that, and kind of what are some of the things that you're doing to kind of help along with those lines?
Okay, so we've been getting a lot of calls from actually the past 2 days from Atlanta, Minnesota, DC, out here in Dallas and in California, asking, hey, we've seen ink education nationally around, and they're making big impacts, but how, what's going on with the pandemic? How can we make things happen? Excuse me, for them. So what we've been experiencing is the fact that a lot more families are needing homeschooling type services too, in addition to a lot tighter tutoring services to really handle the school's curriculum, whether it be private school, online school, public school, magnet school, and the like. We're able to facilitate those particular those gaps, right, and close those gaps. So we have a lot of parents who are at home working and they're not educators. They have no idea how to really educate the students and bring that classroom to home like an educator would, right? So
Yeah.
education is really taking this situation by the horns and saying, hey, look, we can have our tutors work with you online. We can, if need be, we can go to the home with safety precautions with masks and things of that nature, making sure nobody has COVID-19. And we can do homeschooling services either online, virtually, or we can also go to the home if need be, depending on this, the safety precautions that are involved with that. So we're providing and closing those gaps to where the parent can still focus on work, but we can focus on everything else as an organization to ensure that their kid is getting what they need. But the pandemic has put a lot of parents at stress. And now a lot of educators at stress because there are different districts. There's been releases every week from Prosper ISD to Dallas to Cedar Hill to DeSoto, Duncanville to Highland Park to all these different, in Dallas, of course, all these different districts are finding when they're going to open up in September. Are they doing online virtual learning first? Are they doing a hybrid solution, or are they going to actually go physically all in? So we're taking all those scenarios into consideration and addressing each piece in a one-on-one conversation, with different parents, schools, and students.
Yeah, and I guess like I'm kind of curious, like, do you think that there is anything kind of lost with virtual learning as opposed to in person?
Yeah, so the trend, I'd say the learning loss, well, first of all, let's rewind the tape and go backwards. For the past 3 months, the world, right, has been experiencing kids not doing full scale education in the classroom, right? They only got online content to learn, and when the stuff was sent to them, they had to figure it out on their own, right? So I think that when it comes to figuring that out, right, the virtual setting, I think it works for some people and it doesn't work for all people at the same time, right? The attention span, for one, is one thing that elementary kids and possibly some earlier middle school kids have issues with, because they're speaking to their friends, they're interacting with people, they're doing all these things, but now virtually, since they can't see them anymore and they can't interact like they normally would, there's a little bit of a lost translation and being able to interact with the teachers, right? So they might go off and do certain things online that they wouldn't do in the classroom. But I think for some students, virtual learning is actually where they need it to be, right? They don't do well in a classroom environment. They do work well by themselves and accomplishing content and work on their own as if they were in college. And those would be probably for your gifted and talented students, as well. But there has been a niche that hasn't been hit as much with those students who are special education students, 504 IEP students. What do we do with those kids who have autism, those kids who have Asperger's, or who have dyslexia? What do we do to address those things from virtual learning perspective? And those things you have to really look at as well.
Yeah, and I guess kind of segueing into talking about Black tutors of social media, I guess like, was this something that you were kind of planning beforehand, or was this kind of something that came out of the pandemic?
Yeah, so Black tutors of social media was initially thought about 6 months ago, maybe a little bit less than 6 months ago. And I was, I thought in my head, how can I find a way to solve a problem where people could find Black tutoring companies. I kept getting asked, everywhere that I went when I was traveling outside of Dallas to other cities and metro areas, hey, do you know any type of tutoring companies who are minority owned or Black owned? And I'm like, there's not many. I do know maybe one or two, but a lot of people kept on hearing things about what we were doing, nationwide. And so I wanted to say, there's got to be more people. It can't just be us. There's got to be more individuals who are impacting students out there. And so I did a poll of individuals to see, who is impacting students out there in different, groups and things of that nature. And there are some people who are out there, and I wanted to find them. So I created a space to where they can come to one area, either through the website or on social media, and a mobile app will be created sometime soon, right before right when it'll start right when the website releases. But they can all come to one location, find a Black tutoring organization within their reach, right? It'll have different types of breakdowns and fields to where they can do search, like a Google search kind of situation, right? With distance and male or female, virtual, non-virtual. I mean, they'll have all these options to choose from to where now this is here, this solution is now here, right? And then on top of that, you have that nonprofit scenario with the programming and the different services. So I think that it was the right time. The pandemic just made it light up a little bit brighter. And parents never had that solution. So now that it is here, they can move with that and be able to do greater things from the school systems to the private sector.
Yeah, and I mean, you said earlier like that was planning to be kind of like a global platform. Have you seen like a lot of interest kind of coming in from overseas as well?
Yes, so there's been a lot of interest from different countries. There's been a lot of interest from even celebrities on the back end who are actually waiting for a solution like this to come for their students who they may be homeschooling right now. There's a lot of interest from different tutoring companies who are saying, hey, this is awesome. This is dope. We've never seen this before. I want to be part of it, right? So folks are looking to us to create this, great platform that they're going to be able to go to their phones and look up, on the fly where they can go and how they can get this accomplished. But this is not going to be just for a regular company. For those that are listening and watching, I'm vetting. There's going to be some vetting that's going to be done for them to be on the platform. They cannot just be any run-of-the-mill tutoring organization or tutoring company. They have to be of excellence. They have to have certain statistics and certain stats and a lot more things and requirements. So once they're in, then they'll be able to, provide services and do great things for the community.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to make sure that we kind of are able to touch on like all the different businesses here. But I think the one thing that kind of links them all is, that kind of education aspect. And so kind of looking at Ink Beauty, I guess just kind of talk to me about like your thoughts when you were kind of co-founding it and bringing in the, kind of entrepreneurial education side of things.
Yeah. So excuse me. So the co-founder and the CEO of the organization is Gia McLeod. She has been in the cosmetic space and beauty space for over 10 years, working with different big brands. And so we had met a while back and, connected just about entrepreneurship. And, when she found out about my education background, we had a conversation about, what would it look like to pair up and infuse education and beauty together and create something from that, right? So that's when Ink Beauty was came into play about roughly a year and a half ago, at the tail end of 2018. And we decided to make it an on beauty service startup, basically to help customers or clientele create customized looks and give them tips on the best products that would fit their needs, skin type, and style, right? And so the goal then was, how can we then bring education to the consumers and the makeup artists that we have on our teams without having them go to the stores, to a Sephora, to a MAC, to an Urban Decay, or any of the other providers of cosmetic services to gain the knowledge. We could actually teach them in-house and make sure they don't have to go outside of where we're at with that, right? Right now, with the pandemic happening, salons are being shut down. People are not able to go physically to those places to get their makeup done or to get beautified, right? Get their hair done or get their lashes, whatever the case may be. They weren't able to come in, right? And so different generation, with generational gaps, right? From the millennials all the way to, Generation Z to the baby boomers, the uptick in sales was going more so towards online and do it yourself, right? DIY type of cosmetics. But as you see, the bulk of the percentage of business before that was coming towards going in the store and being intimate with your beauty professional, right? So I think having a space where our artists can be educated about the industry, we can teach them great things in cosmetics, and they can teach our clientele great things. Is just makes things a lot better, and the industry really needs that right now. But then those artists who do come in, they don't always know how to start a business. So we teach them those skill sets on not how to just, learn your craft and know your craft, but how can you be an entrepreneur in that space and build a real business, not just a hobby.
Yeah, and I think we might have talked about this in one of our previous conversations, but we did a big feature on looking at like Black founders and kind of the entire ecosystem. And one of the things that kind of came up was like a lot of the, not super flashy like tech startups kind of tend to get overlooked. And so I guess like I kind of wanted to ask you as a Black founder yourself, like, why do you think that is that some of like, that entrepreneurism outside of just like kind of this flashy technology tends to get overlooked?
So let's kind of look back at a few things, right? Even going back to Atlanta, well, you have San Francisco and Silicon Valley, that is the major tech hub for the U.S., right? But then you have Atlanta, which is where the Black tech is, right? One of the other reasons why we wanted to have a second headquarters in Atlanta outside of Dallas is because they have a different sector out there that has a focus on minorities and Black founders, right? The city has Emory, Georgia Tech, Morehouse, Spelman, Collab Capitals out there. Google for Startups is out there. There's a lot of tech incubators, gathering spots. So there's all of these places where you can collaborate and have a think tank to get things done within the tech scene. You have Tristan Walker, Jewel Burke Solomon, all of them are out there trying to impact what's going on in tech, right? But the problem with Black founders, not with Black founders, but the problem with the industry addressing Black founders is the fact that less than 3% of that venture capital or that VC funding is going towards women and minorities. We're talking collectively, not just 3% for Black-owned businesses or for women, period, but collectively it's less than 3%. And quite frankly, another statistic came out yesterday that said 92% of Black-owned businesses are sole proprietorships, and they're not employing people, right? They don't have employees or consultants or contractors. So that in itself is a problem. And I think in order to fix those things, we have to stop move the conversation from here's the venture capitalist, right? And here's the funding, and we're talking about ideas, but then we're not moving and transitioning the funding over to the businesses and the Black founders to make things happen, right? We can talk about things all day, but if the funding is not translating over to the business, right, then we can't provide the solutions that will create a dire impact to those that are looking for them, for the consumers who want those services and products. We can't do that without all that funding, right? So I think the disparity is huge between non-minority tech founders and minority tech founders, and the access to the funding is the issue. And that's one big thing that a lot of people are trying to address right now from everywhere, right? Robert Smith, who just donated another 20 million, I believe, to Morehouse, I think as of yesterday or today. Everybody's coming together to try and address those problems.
Yeah, I think the last time I talked to Mandy Price, the CEO of Canaries, I think her basic statement was, if you want to help Black founders, fund us. And I think that's kind of simple, but obviously it's not necessarily happening. But I guess, like,
right.
In your opinion, like, what do you think are some of the things that, Dallas does well on that end, and some of the things that it could improve on?
I think Dallas has done well on trying to create different spaces where we can collaborate and get together to have, excuse me, to have many thought leaders like with the Dallas Entrepreneur Center, right? The DEC, right? You have individuals like Trey Bowles and other folks who are, like Michelle Williams out there as well, who's making things happen for Black founders and having the ecosystem that's within Dallas, think of better solutions in different ways, holding individuals accountable and being able to exert different programming out there to where people can partake in those, whether it be online at this point or physically, for us to be, to be mentored. But the problem is, again, we need, Black founders, we need less mentorship. And like you said, we need more funding. Less mentorship, more more funding. We do know kind of what we're doing in most cases, but the problem is that access. Dallas is doing a better job of bringing tech co-founders and founders in general together in general spaces so we can have those conversations and make things happen. But I think there's still a long way to go when it comes to the old money that's in Dallas and the new money, right? So you have to close those gaps between accessing that capital in the old money spaces and seeing where that can be translated over to other businesses that can, make bigger impacts for the city.
Yeah, for sure. We're kind of running low on time here, so I kind of want to change gears. I wanted to ask you about the whole pandemic thing, involving Ink Beauty as well. I mean, obviously that's like an industry that, has definitely been hard hit. And so I kind of wanted to talk about how have you guys at Ink Beauty been impacted, and kind of what are some of the changes that you've had to make because of this?
Yeah, so due to the pandemic, we're not able to go directly to the homes as much as we were able to go to before, or able to provide as much as an on-demand beauty service that we were able to provide before. It's just now coming a little bit more, a little back. We're able to do those things a little bit more now because of the governor, right? Being able to release some of that tension, but it may be coming back in the fall. So making sure that we have face masks, making sure that we are, we have gloves, making sure that we're able to provide those services with the security measures and the health procedures that is needed for the field, right? And so we've seen a decline in requests for those type of services, and an increase in the services of, hey, can you provide these on-demand beauty services online through video conferencing? Can you train me on these particular things as a live demo, right? We're also looking at releasing our own, products, right? Whether it be makeup brushes to other things, right, that are branded. So there's a lot of different things that we're looking at that can bring other streams of revenue into the organization and business. But we've seen a decline, I would say, just in those physical services. But in order for us to pivot, we've been looking at doing more things online, more things to be intimate with our clientele and consumers through Instagram, through Facebook, through just different platforms for us to really launch out our different services, because we're also addressing those who are in the elder dynamic as well, as far as the generations, all the way down to the millennials. So we have a different type of gap to fill in all those different dynamics.
Yeah, and I'm always kind of like curious, because of like the pandemic and everything else that's going on, like, do you feel that you've kind of had to like change your like mentality and approach, like as a leader of a business because of this? And I guess just like, how has it kind of affected you personally in the way that you see yourself as a leader of a business?
I think one thing that happened is I actually got COVID, right? So
I'm glad you're still here with us.
I had COVID, recovered from COVID about a week and a half ago. So when you actually come from a situation like that, you have to think differently as to what ways am I going to be in a situation for me to be recession proof, right? The cool thing about education and the way that this landed was the fact that we've always been doing online tutoring services really since we started about 5 years ago, right? It just wasn't at the scale that we're at now. And so at this point too, being able to provide different services, being in the pandemic, we have been able to increase our services portfolio, I would say almost double, because of what individuals were requesting and asking for. We were able to still provide that. it didn't decline our services and our demand too much, but the test prep did get decreased quite a bit, because now, of course, schools are trying to figure out, is the SAT and the ACT going to be required for entrance into school? Are we going to delay it for a little while? Are we still going to use it for entrance requirements? Are we still going to use it for scholarships? Like, so all those things are still up in the air as we go along. But that is kind of how it has impacted that piece. As far as the Black Tutors of social media is concerned, that has spurred another demand for finding, the minority and the black tutors that are out throughout the world. So I think that that's going to be a great launch and release for us next month throughout Dallas and Atlanta. And with Ink Beauty, of course, it has spurred some things that we're able to do online and virtually with our clientele. So we've been pretty much recession proof just about this whole time, and been able to be creative and be able to pivot on everything, and been able to be come out of it successful.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we could probably talk about this all day, I'm sure, but I'm getting the virtual warning that we're running out of time here. So I appreciate you sitting down with us. And to everyone who's joined us, thank you guys for joining us on our first Bytes with the Beat. We are running these events across all of our networks, so please check them out at americaninno.com. And also, again, be sure to check out our website, ntxinno.com, to learn more about those events, get some more information about what's going on in the ecosystem, and sign up for our newsletter, The Beat. Jay, thank you so much. And if anybody that was tuning in has questions, feel free to send those to us, and we will send those over to Jay to get answered.
Absolutely. I appreciate y'all for having me on. Everybody that's out there, if you need to reach out to me, I'm all over social media, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, the whole nine. Just type in my name or one of the companies and you'll find it.
Well, awesome. Hey, again, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. Jay, you have a good day.
All right. Thank you much, guys.
Bye.